Super. So evening, guys. Thanks for jumping on this live. It's had a lot more interest than we were quite expecting, so we're super excited. What we're going to do is we're going to whiz through the question, tracking versus mantrailing, why both matter, in quite a conversational style. Me and Kevin decided to do this because it's something that's kind of appearing in mantrailings, and we're going to refer a lot to obviously UK based sports because that's where we are, wherever in the UK. But yeah, we're going to have some fun, and we're going to hopefully clarify some of the stuff that's out there at the moment that may or may not be. I just think it's not very clear at the moment, quite frankly. So the first thing we'll talk about is kind of the differences and similarities between them, why, like, our personal journeys, why we've gone down this route of like talk about tracking to help with mantrailing dogs, and why this has become a journey over the last 2 years to maybe define the three different things that we're talking about, the reward differences and the methods offer, how adjusting the training can create confidence and clarity, and it's kind of what we've seen more than anything. Just a reminder as well, questions at the end, please, and we'll have time to chat about questions. We can pop them in the chat at the time they're happening. That's fine, but we will answer them towards the end because hopefully what we're talking about will answer some of the questions. So for those of you who haven't had the privilege of meeting me, poor people, or working with me over in the UK, so I'm Catherine Love, was Catherine Jones up until recently. I've been a behaviourist since 2014. I was a security dog instructor as well since 2015. And I've been mantrailing instructor since 2019. And it started off on this fantastic tunnel into chaos that is mantrailing. And then in 2023, I had a bit of a change of what we were doing and really wanted some help with the dogs I was working with, kept hitting a lot of brick walls. So started looking at tracking, and worked with Set Imprint for Dogs and also Global K9. And just from there, I was coming to this niche within a niche of fun tracking. I'm very lucky to train other dog trainers, and I'm very lucky to share my life with 9 mad dogs who teach me, I think, more than anything, most days. And my biggest passion is building clarity and mantrailing. Right, I'm going to hand over to Kevin. It's not all about me. So, Kevin, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So for the guys who don't know me, my name's Kevin Motion, based in the Scottish Borders in Scotland. I've been involved teaching sense sports since 2015. The reason I say sense sports is I do sense detection as well as trailing. My main background was working in rescue kennels, so dealing with dogs, assessing them, rehabilitating dogs daily, and using sense sports to help their dogs. Like Catherine, completed my level 1 and 2 track and trailing scent for print dogs course after completing my man trailing course in 2019 as well. I'm accredited in scent detection with multiple UK and international organizations. I've been doing detection for best part of over a decade now, and that's where a lot of my skills came into trailing from was detection side of things. I've been like I said, training for over a decade now. I have won an award as well up in Scotland, which is quite nice to talk about. But I'm quite a practical person. I like to see dogs work. I watch dogs a lot, so most of my adult life was reading dogs. Prior to man trailing, I used to do sports tracking as well. So prior to 2015, I was doing sports tracking with my own dogs, then progressed into more detection, like I said, and then Mantrailing took over. And now seems to be coming back in a wee bit of a round circle here, back towards tracking. But yeah, there's a little bit about myself. I don't say too much, but I say what matters basically.
So, why are we talking about this, and why is there 100 people listening to us talk about this? Because it seems the daft thing that it's all there seems to be this thing of, oh, it's tracking or it's man trailing. You can't mix the two, and I think that was very much what me and Kevin both did, the same man training course in the same year. We weren't on the same courses, but it it was very much like, oh, you don't want to do tracking, it's not going to make a difference, or it's not as fun, don't worry about it. And I definitely spouted that crap of tracking's boring, it's not for you, you want to come man trailing, with a lot of ignorance. In the past 2 years, so we did our instructor course January 2 years ago, Um, Things have shifted a lot in the UK, and I'm obviously going to talk about the UK. I've been lucky enough to we both work with international teams as well, but there's definitely been a shift from just man trailing into thinking a little bit more about stuff. Um, and it isn't necessarily adding tracking in as a solution, but it's using it as a tool in the toolbox. Because at the end of the day, whether you're a handler or a trainer or instructor or whatever title you want to give yourself, you are looking to help your dog succeed in the way they work.
Yeah,
Kevin, jump in.
yeah. Um, I'm quite happy for Catherine to do all the chatting, so it's you'll hear me getting prompted. So yeah, with that, just going on again about toolbox, a lot of people think you should do man trailing and or man trailing or tracking. Whereas what are they both of the sports are they're trailing sports at the end of the day. We're teaching dogs to use their nose to follow order and they just help. Doing it, there's not one way which is better, like we're saying, it's just creating clarity for the dogs. So like the slide in front of you says, we aim to provide clarity in conversation about adding tracking into your training skills. Um, for for us, like Catherine was saying, we've been trailing man trailing for over 6 years now, and we've hit this point where something wasn't quite working, and we needed to find some answers from other places. And one of them was an organization called Centre Print for Dogs, and looking at how they did it differently to how we were trained, basically.
Yeah, we had a discussion about 2 years ago before we started working with these guys and learning was seeing the same problems, really fast dogs dragging their handlers, dogs being inaccurate, failing at double blinds consistently. And we're talking about sports dogs. We work in a sports dog world. This is no point reference to operational dogs. But we were seeing all these problems all the time. And the tools we had wasn't we were they weren't working. You know, using high intensity wasn't helping, making the trails more complex, um, setting up different kind of things just wasn't working. And it was this real problem where me and Kevin discussed it probably for hours and hours over, we saw each other for training, was something's missing, but we don't know what it is because these dogs are struggling at something that is really natural to them. Like your dog can hunt a bunny, so why can't it find a person in the bush with some cheese? And we're putting a lot of time and effort into teaching these man dogs. People coming 2 or 3 times a week. They were really, really working hard, but it felt like we couldn't explain to them what they needed to do in order to problem solve. And as dog trainers, as passionate dog trainers, been working in the industry for the last decade, it's very infuriating that we didn't have the answers, um, because we just didn't have the experience at the time, of what to do. So we started looking at more places to learn from, and you guys over in Europe have a much better understanding of this than we do.
Mhm. Completely agree with that.
Yeah.
We're definitely behind in the UK, I'd say. And same for across America and stuff. There's a lot more, seems to take time to get to the UK, unfortunately.
So there are two ways to train man trailing, and I say it's a lot in the stuff that I do online. I say it's a lot when I say to people. There's teaching the dog to find the person, or there's teaching the dog to follow the trail to the person. And definitely with the way that man training kind of took off in the UK in sports, it was just about find the person. Whether your dog used air scent, ground scent, guessed, throw yourself in traffic, over a bush, took a shortcut, tried to kill you to get there, got off the lead to get there. The dogs were just consumed with the end. There was not a lot of focus on the journey and the adventure. And we weren't teaching dogs to follow the trail. I absolutely vehemently hold my hand up and look back at what we were teaching dogs to do. And if you could ask dogs and say, what do you think is the goal that gets to the end? When we don't want
Yeah,
that to be the main goal, we want them to follow the trail to get there. We want some of that accuracy because the accuracy allows clarity. The accuracy makes it easy for us to read. And the accuracy actually fulfills those breed needs in the dog to hunt.
absolutely. Completely agree with all that. And I think when we first started doing man trailing, as a sport in the UK, I mean, it's only if talk about what, 2017, maybe the year before that, 2016, the sport really appeared in the UK. Now, obviously, we're referring to UK and Europe and America and stuff like that. It's been around a lot longer. I appreciate that. But for us in the UK, it was a relatively new sport, and we didn't have the same information we have now. And we do look back, and I look back at clients and go, ah, I wish I'd done that a little bit differently, but we didn't know any better then. So it's not saying we did it wrong. It's just we didn't know any better. And the emphasis should have been on trailing, not finding the person. And that's what I stand by now, is it should be about a trailing sport. At the end of the day, when you look at what we're doing is man trailing, it's trailing's in the word, is in the name. We should be teaching dogs to follow the trail to find the person, not find the person any means necessary. And that's just, again, 5 years ago I wouldn't have said that. But we are evolving. Me and myself and Catherine definitely are evolving to look at this and go, well, hang on, we need to be thinking about this a bit better. We need to know what we're actually teaching our dogs to do here. Are we teaching our dogs to guess or to trail? And unfortunately, I see a lot of guesswork in man trailing dogs nowadays. They're not even thinking. They just start looking behind every bush, every tree, every car, because they go, I go find the person eventually. It doesn't matter how I get there. So yeah, I think we need to revisit it sometimes. And not saying there's anything wrong with how a lot of people train. Everyone open to their own way of training. That's absolutely fine. These are just our thoughts.
Yeah, and it depends what your goal is. You know, some people's goal, especially in sports, is just the dog has a great time. And that's fine. If your dog wants to look around trees and guess where people are, then that's not a problem. But when I think, I can't speak for everybody, but I speak for myself of I want to teach my dogs to do something in a accurate, calm, thoughtful way, like I would teach a recall, isn't about putting dog on a long line and dragging them in. It's about teaching them that I have reward, that it's worth coming back to me, and breaking those things down into steps. We missed those steps in Mantrailing. We went all about the end and not about the journey. And with like taking it and calling it more trailing than man trailing or tracking and that kind of middle ground, what we're aiming to do is give that clarity there and encourage the dogs to work in a way that is natural to them, but also that makes sense for us as handlers and instructors as well, because we're linear beings. We like to do stuff in order. We like to learn stuff, and so do our dogs. And because we're just jumping to the end all the time, we're just creating these bigger and bigger problems where the dogs, in most cases, would just not enjoying themselves, and so were the handlers. Was when you step back, take clarity, and break stuff down, suddenly everything just makes more sense to everybody. And it was really interesting to start seeing that shift when we kind of went, hold on a minute, what are we teaching the dogs to do? Because I don't think it's what we think it is. Um, so our journey here. So we didn't just go, oh my God, we're going to do tracking and now we know everything and we're going to go out and teach it. We did a certificate, we did a course over 5 days. We looked at each other and went, oh my God, this flips our head on its shoulders and we need to think about what we're doing. And then we went set about training our own dogs. We both at the time had quite young dogs. I've got a Springer Spaniel for my own insanity. Kevin was smart and got a German Shepherd puppy, who's superb, and she's like the epitome of perfection. But it was about finding solutions to issues and helping our clients. But we started with our own dogs first.
Yeah, so as Catherine was saying, we did the 5 day course. Afterwards, we went, okay, cool. We've got this information, we've got that bit of paper to say we can officially go out into the world and teach if we wanted. But we went, nope, we need to spend time processing this information and ultimately making mistakes with our own dogs before we make mistakes with clients' dogs. And there was mistakes made. Of course, there's mistakes. There's always mistakes made when you're training. But it's what you do after your mistakes which matters, where both me and Catherine can both say our dogs are really accurate trailing dogs, especially for a spaniel. With Catherine, like Jin, her spaniel is probably one of the most accurate spaniels I've ever seen. And that's because she's gone away and spent a lot of time going through the methods, working hard, and just putting the work in with that dog. Because she was mental. Like honestly, like I don't say it easily. She was mental. That dog.
It
You
was,
should have seen her. You should honestly, you guys, you should have seen her on that workshop.
it was very cold January. I think we did mostly wading through water than tracking, didn't we?
Yeah, the
Um,
first day was like swimming.
yeah, we took time to learn about our dogs and then take this information and look at our clients. Now we share we're really lucky, even though I live in North Wales and Kevin lives up in Scotland, and we're about 5 hours difference drive. We share quite a few clients, and we had clients that had the same problems. It was a very fast Labrador that we both worked with. There was a couple other dogs that we were both working with that we were going, this is really going to help them. We need a plan. And we started working with the owners and building stuff. But one of then these were clients that we both hit brick walls with, didn't know what to do with, and were struggling and didn't have the solutions. And it was so interesting. We started the tracking to take that knowledge, do it with our own dogs, and then turn to these clients and say, hey, you're not going to be guinea pigs, but can we put, if you're willing to trust us and put this work in, I think we can get your dogs to walk down the trail. I think we can get your dogs to be accurate again. And it's taken time, but these dogs are completely different animals. They use their brains, they're not dragging around, they're not trying to kill their owners. They're actually using their brain cells, and there's less of this head in the air, oh my god, where's my trail, where's my cheese dragon. These dogs find so much value in the ground scent. They're actually bypassing the trail layers, which is just hilarious. Because they're like, oh my God, you're there, are you? Okay, super. But I was busy following the ground scent. So you're actually really annoying now because you mean the end. Or they don't care that there's nobody at the end. They're not interested in the end of the track. They're interested in following that odor. And one of the best phrases I've ever been told is by Ilka Hamilla from Global K9. The dogs follow the heart of the track. And when we do man trailing, we're not looking at the heart of anything. What we're looking at is get to the end. Just just get to that jackpot, which isn't a sensible way to live.
No, definitely. And some of the dogs, like Catherine was referring to, one dog in particular, which I will name, the dog's name's Amber. Um, she was very much a wild dog. When she was trailing, the handler went through a pair of gloves almost every trailing session.
Oh my God.
Whereas now she is, and we would have deemed her unsafe effectively to trail in like a busy urban environment, so in towns, just simply because if the dog was going, the dog was going. There was no stopping her. Double lining wouldn't work, or any of this sort of stuff wouldn't slow that dog down. It would just built more drive
I
and
double
or
lined
more.
her once by mistake, and she dragged me and her owner. Bear in mind, I'm about 75 kilos, probably owner's made same as me, a bit less. This is maybe a 25, 30 kilo Labrador. She dragged us down the street on a double line.
Yeah,
And
it would have been safe.
it was not safe. Absolutely not.
No, and it's one of the dogs we do talk a lot about because the progression we've seen from that dog's from both the owner putting our trust in us, and now that dog effectively will walk a trail, like Catherine said. And I remember the first time I met her, I went, "Oh wow, okay, what are we going to do with this?" And it took us a while to figure this dog out, and using some sensible knowledge that we now built up over the last couple of years, we've gone, this dog is now walking. The owner's loving man trailing or trailing now because she's not going through a pair of gloves every week. She's not being dragged around. She actually can read her dog now. She's enjoying everything to do with it now. She's able to trail in busy towns, busy city centres, because she can handle her dog now. Because the dog's built so much value in the trail itself rather than I need to get to the end. Doesn't matter how I get there. And it really didn't matter to that dog how it got there. Um, Now it's about following the trail to find either article or person, whatever it is, the dog's happy, as long as I can then follow the trail. The trail is more valuable to that dog, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. It's just been really cool journey to use these tracking skills. I really wish I had opportunity. So there's spaniel in this photo. That isn't Gin. Gin was the other spaniel that we had the ball in the mouth of the other photo. This is Captain, my first Springer I bred, and I bred him purposely for man trailing. I've got his mum, and I made all the cardinal sins. I completely destroyed this dog through man trailing by doing too much intensity, by allowing him to hunt around and be a prat, by not being clear to him and not being fair to him. He's a spaniel, of course he's going to hunt. He's bred to hunt for stuff. I never explained to him like wanting to work linear. He would often, if we were the wrong instructor, be allowed to go 600-700 meters off the trail in the wrong direction, just by hoping that he might find somebody by pure chance. What ended up happening is actually he died at 5 years old from a spinal injury from dragging that hard in the harness man trailing that I didn't realize. I didn't notice what I'd done. I hold my hand up as a handler and instructor and as a dog owner that he was going on off lame. Oh, he's a bit wild. And it's when we come back to the CT scans and stuff, they're like, why is he? It's like a really unrandom thing to happen to this dog. It's spinal injury. It's pulling on the muscles of his back legs. And I went, he does man trailing. Showed the guy some videos of this dog man trailing. He went, oh my God. He's like, how often does he do this? Like a couple of times a week. And he's like, oh no, this is what's caused it. And ultimately, by not giving this dog clarity, by allowing him to hurt himself almost every session, and people telling me that this was okay, it was normal, like to work at this speed, I ultimately caused his early death. And that hangs on me, and it hangs on me when I work with clients. It's not a sob story, it's not the end of the world. We all make mistakes, and sometimes it's the detriment of people, sometimes it's the detriment of dogs. But looking back now and going, what was I doing? I'm a dog trainer and I knew this was wrong on some level, but I didn't address it because it was what everybody else was doing. And I've stood up when I was doing security dog training and said stuff and gone, no, this doesn't work. And I've stood in other bits, but with man trailing, because it was such a dopamine high and it was exciting, it was fast paced, and he was like ramming around like a headless chicken. Like this dog, there's a video which I often show on stuff where this dog jumps off the edge of a castle trying to get to where he thinks the trail layer is and does a 16-foot abseil down the edge of the castle on a long line, thank God, because he has no self-preservation because of man trailing. And Kevin was there that day, and all you can hear is like the only time I hear Kevin swear. um, is this
That
dog
that was
terrifying?
terrifying. Yeah, that's the nicest way to describe it. It was not a nice experience, put it that way. And that
Yeah,
was exactly what Catherine described. He was just, oh, it might be this way.
yeah, and he ultimately hurt himself multiple times trying to get to the end of the trail without thinking. Now, when you look at any other dog sport like gun dog training, yeah, he was a gun dog, and gun dogs are bred to hunt forwards and do things, but they're also bred to be calm and be still and to wait and do things in a certain way. I don't want you to hunt in the whole forest hoping you find a pheasant. I want you to work this area in this way, or I want you to pick up the bird in this way, or if you do agility, I want you to work in this way. And what we did with man training is we put our hands in the air, we went, yeah, find the person, and we've left the dogs to it. And ultimately, this has caused dogs to work in a way that works for them genetically, which is strong, fast, let's go, I want my reward. There's a 100% success rate in sportsman trailing. So I know if I work hard enough, I will find that reward. We don't do blank searches. We don't do pulling dogs off the trail for no reason. There's a high success rate. So the dogs are super motivated. Wouldn't you be if every time you knew you pressed the button on a gambling machine that you were going to get a payout, and it might be £1 or it might be £1,000, but you knew you get a payout? Of course, you're going to do it every time. And this dog ultimately put himself in early. I allowed him to go into an early grave because I didn't use my dog training brain. And I only lost him this year really suddenly because after 2 years of being on a crate rest. And I vowed that I'm not doing that again. And I got another spaniel to learn from. I got a higher drive spaniel that she's all field trial champion lines. And my premise was if I can get her to track in a straight line, I can get any dog to track in a straight line. And bugger me, she tracks a straight line. And she
Oh
tracks
yeah.
really well,
Yeah,
fast,
yeah.
but really well. Um, and you
But
know,
still important to note here as well, important to clarify this. She still trails or tracks, however you want to say it, like a spaniel.
yeah,
We're not saying she's not allowed to be a spaniel about this. It's just we're going, there's a better way to do this rather than being manic about how you trail. And so she's still doing a lot of what we'll call floor negatives or quartering on the trail. Absolutely. It's just a lot more controlled from the dog, not from the handler, from the dog, compared to what you see a lot of spaniels doing when they're trailing, or that I usually see.
yeah, definitely. And it's really interesting. So we've got definitions of kind of what we would define between the three different things. You've got sportsman trailing, which is follow the scent from an article, warm with a person. So these dogs are scent specific dogs. They're finding this person in the environment. What we often find is that dogs are finding anybody that looks like a trail layer in the environment. If they're
Yeah,
sat behind a bush, anyone on the bench becomes fair game. God forbid somebody
absolutely.
has a pot in their hands. Um,
If you just look like a trail layer, a lot of the dogs go, oh, especially if it's a longer trail or a more complex trail, the dogs start guessing again. They go, it might be you because that pays out, and that's again because dogs are just following. Um, they're guessing. On you go. Sorry.
Mm. They do. They start to learn patterns, and the dogs in man trailing will use ground and air scent, and the rule only comes at the end of the trail. So we don't have anything built into sports man trailing over here that allows us to reward mid trail. You can say some people use reward markers or like just verbal good dog, but most of the dogs are not really interested in what we're doing at that point. They're hell bent on the end. The tracking that we
But
referred to.
I'm just
Sorry,
going to
what?
add a wee note in there, which is also very dangerous to be verbally marking your dog on a trail if you do not know where it's going.
Yeah,
If you start doing this and then you're doing a single blind and you verbally mark your dog and it's incorrect, you're just reinforcing dogs to making the wrong choices, guys. Which you all, I assume most of you understand that. I just wanted to clarify that.
yeah. Um, so when we talk about tracking pet sports, we're not talking about IPG. We're not talking about that kind of the working trials type sports. We're talking about following that kind of odor on the ground that is quite specific,
Yep.
um, and using something that the track player has touched. So whether that's an article on the ground, a scent pad, or like a fabric scent article, they're matching it to it. Um, we're tasking them to follow the trail of that person. Now, the handler can set these tracks out as well, which is one of the things that makes it easy for you to do homework and easy for you to um, practice different specific things. You can break it down the same as if you want a really fancy heel work or like an obedience style heel work, you can go home and you can practice the reps. Whereas with traditional man trailing, you need someone in a bush, basically. You need someone to hide. Whereas this, there's generally nobody at the end of the track, so you can work on things in a different way.
Yeah. Um, Trailing is what I tend to do most of the time nowadays. So there's a blend of the two. Focus on the dog being accurate without and working the trail. Still get the rewards from articles along the way. It's more about the journey than the end of the trail. So trying to combine both of that tracking skills and the man trailing elements. So the dogs, when we say we're trailing, it's why we refer to like track trailing or track and trailing a lot of the time is the dogs, we're not looking for the dogs to be footstep tracking. We're looking for dogs to follow the trail, but they're still allowed to um, cast a little bit, still allowed to work edges of odor, etc. It's just a little bit more accuracy rather than the man trailing, but combining, there might not be a person at the end for when you're trailing. Um,
Yeah,
and that's what I, so when I now talk about trailing in general, I that's what I refer to as I don't do man trailing sessions anymore. I do trailing sessions now because I want to focus on dogs being a bit more accurate, but they still we have people who come who will do people at the end 100%, people who come and do mix and match.
people tend to think a bit more. Well, we think a bit more as instructors about the dogs, what the dog needs in the terms of their training. We can use articles to help reward dogs more often. So the articles allow us to have more opportunities to give the dogs dopamine to reward. We can use food reward, we can use toy reward. What we're looking to do is break the tasks down for the dog, and trailing allows us to not just focus on getting to the end, but focus on the journey there, using articles or using the way the trail's set up in order to be able to reward the dogs for certain things. Um, and it's we're blending the two to get to the same end point, which is the dog is accurate and finds the person or the last point that person finished, which is usually an article. So what we're looking when we're blending these things is to work with what that dog needs ultimately. And this isn't new. None of this what we're talking about is new. Tracking's been around forevermore. It's where before man training was a thing. It's been for a long time tracking. We're not going, oh my God, we discovered trailing. We're amazing. What we're trying to talk about is that you need to look at what you're teaching your dog and what you're teaching your handlers, and does it need to be the same way, or can you add in training steps in order to get to the end? Because one needs the other. If you're trying to do really really like specific tracking that's like very specific about a sport, that's pretty hard work. I'm never get my spaniel to do that, but if I want my spaniel to find people and have fun, I can do it in a way that's more natural for her, but using articles to keep her nose down, to help her get rewarded more often. And also for me as a handler, to know where that track is. I get a visual representation as well.
Couldn't agree more. It's more about rather than going we're doing one or the other, it's we're picking what suits the dog or that team in that environment on that trail. It's mixing and matching. So moving on to tracking skills. So tracking alone isn't going to fix your man trail and dogs issues, and that's something we seen quite quickly appear as, oh, it's going to slow my dog down. Doing tracking's going to do this. Tracking's going to do X, Y, Z, whatever it is. No, it's not. Can't guarantee anything. As the description is, the same as a head collar isn't really going to stop your dog pulling. It's just going to dog, uh, stop your dog pulling as badly. It's just managing. It's masking something. Whereas if we actually teach our dogs what we want them to do versus letting them guess makes so much difference. Clarity equals calm. Now, I love that phrase, honestly, because we're not clear to our dogs. We, as humans, as a species, we're not very clear or um, clarity's, we're not really we're not really clear to our dogs at all. We're not really consistent to our dogs. And same when we do man trailing, we're not consistent in it. Then we suddenly go, okay, we'll do tracking, and that will stop it. That doesn't work like that, though.
That the dogs will just suddenly go, "Oh, you did some tracking with me. Now I use ground scent." They understand context. They know when they come to a man trailing session that they're going to find somebody in a bush and they're going to get cheese and they're going to use whatever methods they've been reinforced with, whatever way they hunt has been reinforced. And just because they one tracking session away from there doesn't mean they will suddenly generalize it. We have a lot of dogs that have started tracking with us, maybe slightly separate from man training sessions. And on the tracking session, their nose down, they're perfect. These dogs have got it. You bring them back into context where we are stood in the car park in the rain on Tuesday evening, and that dog goes straight back into man training mode. The dog
Yeah.
will always go back to what it's been reinforced for. And if it's been reinforced for head in the air guessing, of course it's going to keep doing it. That's what we trained it to do. Um, what we're doing is not you do tracking and therefore your dog will magically understand to use ground scent. It's going, I'm teaching you this skill as a handler so you can read your dog, so you can look at how your dogs work and you can look at the behavior you would like to reward. We're using articles to provide more opportunities for reward. And then when they come on man training session, we're going to put a plan together and go, okay, we're going to blend some of these tracking skills into your man trailing. We're going to look at how man trailing is affecting your dog and what they understand. And we're actually going to train your dog to do this in a certain way that suits them, that isn't hindering them, that isn't frustrating and doing everybody's head in, but is teaching them what you want to do. Again, like clarity equals calm. If a dog knows what you expect from it, it does it in a calm manner. I've got all hydro, I've got Malinois and Dutch herders and Spaniels, and they are generally really calm working dogs because I'm trying to be as clear as possible to them. Grey areas don't suit them because they fill in the gaps with chaos. They're always going to do the stupid thing. If the stupid thing in the Malinois' brain is, I don't know what to do, nip at it or bite it, I don't want that. I want the calm of, oh, I don't know what to do. Maybe I've been reinforced for this thing 1,000 times. Maybe I should do that thing. Um, so we're trying to clear up this training plan for the dogs by using tracking skills. It's not, I have taught tracking, so therefore it's I, as a handler, are learning how to read my dog and do these skills, and we're blending them into these dogs within a man trailing context, if that makes sense.
If it doesn't, you can ask us about it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, people, we've got to remember a lot of the dogs we see, so me and Catherine referring to, um, I've all got Manchurian experience. So their expectations are they come out the vehicle to follow this, take order from whatever the article is, run down the road, find a person, or woods, wherever it is. And now we're suddenly going, nope, it's not about that. It's about following these little discs. And dogs go, hang on, that's not what I thought I was doing. And they rush to the end still. And handlers and clients don't understand why the dog's doing that. And more often than not, it's because the dog's got reinforcement history for getting to the end. The end matters more than anything else. And it's just again clarity. We're not building any clarity into this our training for our dogs, but we have expectations that our dogs should just understand what we want them to do, and it just doesn't make sense when you start confusing it, um, or confusing the dogs, I should really say.
I think a lot of handlers are confused as well. I
Yeah,
think
I
a
agree.
lot of handlers have been taught and reinforced themselves of that speed equals success, which it doesn't, it's lies. And that when the instructors don't know what to do, and I've been guilty of this, I don't know what's happening, not sure, kind of giving a vague answer to what's going on, enough to appease the person, and then God, shit, I don't know, and ask somebody else. Because we've all been there in our career, we've all not known stuff. Um, so the handlers are getting appeased rather than going, well, that was crap. We need to look
Yeah,
at our plan. And the reason we can't look at the plan and we couldn't look at the plan 4 or 5 years ago is there was nowhere to ask for a plan. There wasn't any clarity. There was no one I could turn to go, hey, this is going wrong. What's the plan? Other than apply maybe more intensity or put the dog more complex trails, make it work harder, it'll slow down. All
yeah,
it did is they just made them smarter. Like
yeah.
velociraptors, we just made them smarter. Um, and it was difficult. One of the things that happens with tracking skills is the articles that we use on the tracks are actually really good at slowing the dogs down because they hit it and they go, oh, I call them the cheese buttons a lot of times. So they hit the cheese button, they go, oh my God, cheese button. And they get reinforced for stopping, for calming, for being steady. And we can keep them there as long as we need to. It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be food and then go, or a mouthful of treats off the top of it and off they fly. It's like, hey, let's stop on the article. Let's have calm. Maybe need a drink. Maybe we all need a breather. And we're not going to go until that dog's calm. We're not going to reinforce the chaos. We're going to stop. The dog knows that there's trail afterwards. They can smell it. And generally, as a rule, when we hit an article, law of averages says there's another article somewhere. So they keep working forwards. They're following the odor to get to that jackpot point. But the articles mean we can stop, we can save. If something goes wrong on the trail, I did it recently with a reactive dog. The dog was tracking on beautifully. It was an urban, it's late at night. It's going along, hit an article. And as we went to set off, the dog appeared out of the street. Now it's 10 o'clock at night. This dog's not going to be a friendly dog. The handler of that dog looked at us. We looked at them and we went, right, forget the rest of this track. We're going. I didn't need to get to the end of that track because I could reinforce that dog on the article. So what I was starting to do was not having to push the dog past a point that it couldn't cope to get to the end for a jackpot. I could stop the dog and go, hey, you've done absolutely perfect, mate. Let's revel in this sunshine. Off we go. um, and it meant that these tracking skills, that this dog didn't fail. This dog was rewarding the way I needed it to be. And we avoided what was going to be some serious conflict.
Absolutely. So many times I've seen that myself. I love the referring to it as save points or checkpoints because that's what they
Mm.
are. It doesn't matter which one we stop the dogs on, the dogs are happy because they've trailed. And it stops that fixation of we need to get to the end as quick as possible to get my reward. It doesn't matter where we stop them. Once the dogs are happy with that, of course, we need to teach them this. But they can handle it a lot better rather than worrying about getting to the end every time.
Yeah. Um, Also tracking, somebody said recently, I heard it down the grapevine, that with doing tracking, it stops your dog showing negative. So within man trailing, we we term these things negatives. That when the dogs come off the odor of the trail, they'll give a negative behavior, which is usually quite a stark change in behavior, with the head up, or they will maybe like a displacement pee or turn on the handler. And we spend a lot of time in man trailing reading negatives, not positives.
Yeah.
And we just spend half our life going, that's dog off the trail, that's dog off the trail, that's come off the trail. And we're not focusing on the dog being on the trail. We just spend half our life looking at them off. And then when they're on the trail, the amount of handlers that go, oh my God, I don't the dog's trailing because it's not done anything for 2 minutes. It's just perfectly followed the trail. But we can't read the positives because we spend the whole time looking at these negatives. I hate the word negatives, but I can't. It's off trail behavior, but it's ingrained in my head of negatives. And what you're seeing when you teach the dogs to use ground scent really clearly and you're being clear to the dogs is you don't see negatives anymore because your dog doesn't leave the trail. It stays where the reward is and it goes, hey, if I keep my nose down here, law of averages says the trail's still here. It didn't go anywhere. It doesn't disappear after 2 minutes. It might disappear after 48 hours, but really for the time we put them out, which is anything from 5 minutes to 30 minutes aged, the track's there. So dogs don't come off it because the reward's in front of them. So why the hell would they? When your dog's hunting a bunny, it doesn't go, you know what, I think that bunny's in that bush over there. I'm going to forget about this track and throw myself at the bush. The dog follows the track to the end of it, where the bunny's probably already gone to ground by that point. Um, they follow it because they're more likely to get to the end through that track than they are by guessing. But with Mantrailing, we've taught them to guess. But with tracking skills, we teach them to stop guessing and start focusing. So you don't get as many off-trail behavior or negatives because the dogs are on it, which just
And that
seems
really,
daft.
yeah, it really confuses handlers to start with because you're like, you don't see that off-trail behavior as much, and they go, "Oh, is my dog accurate? Is my dog actually staying on trail?" Yes. So we start focusing more on-trail behaviors rather than off-trail behaviors, which is really interesting. It's human psychology. We focus on the wrong thing, I think.
Right, let's go to the next slide, guys.
Cool.
Rewards. So we have just covered this a little bit, to be fair. I
Yeah.
jumped ahead a bit, but it we've seen it 1,000 times. We never question why all the values at the end of the trail instead of the journey. Like we just go, oh yeah, man trailing. We everything's at the end, and actually, you as a handler, you're not involved in any of it. Absolutely not. Get to the end. Dog finds a person. Even if that person's nervous of people, we force them to find that person, which has always sit on me a little bit weird.
Uh-huh.
Um, but with the tracking, doesn't matter if your dog's nervous of people. We don't put a person at the end. We build it up, and we don't ever have to have a person at the end. I'm actually working with a young spaniel that's very like Jin. We don't put people at the end because he finds people so over arousing. He would absolutely give somebody a black eye through love. And we're just, why would I want him to rush to the end and hurt somebody when he can track along beautifully, hit all his rewards, work with his handler. He gives us such clear like body language when he's on it, when he hits the article, when he's like, "Can I have some more food? Can you play with me?" And we get to the end of the track, and he gets a ball out, and it's the best day of his life. I don't need a person. He's not aggressive. I just don't need a person mucking that up.
I think you find, I certainly seen a lot of the dogs who we assumed really enjoyed finding the person element to it
Mm.
actually didn't enjoy finding the person. They find an article and just as happy. And a lot of the dogs are actually more confidently trailing now because there's no conflict at the end for them. And it's like asking your dog to go find a stranger. It's like asking you to go up to a stranger and ask for food. It's a bit weird. And for a lot of the dogs, they come to a sport like this to build confidence around the people. Actually, I think it does the opposite. I think it can create a lot of conflict for the dogs. Like, I don't really want to go to that person, but I have to because I'm getting pushed into that place. And we encourage the dog in, and we've all done it. We encourage the dog in, and then the dog's like, "Oh, thank God, I've had my food. I'm out of here." Whereas with trailing or tracking, we don't need that conflict. Um, and the dogs I'm seeing, dogs are far happier in a whole not finding people, which is really interesting for me because for the last 4 years, prior to 5 years, I've been finding people, you know, all week, 3, 4, 5 times a week, all the sessions, dogs finding people, and we thought, oh, the dogs are loving this. Well, are they really?
Yeah, when you take the human element out of it, which a lot of times the trail layers are actually problems. They don't do as they're told,
No.
or they no, they like to add their own. Be like, oh, I thought it'd be a good idea. Yeah, I know. And I'm not picking on people specifically. There are just some people that want to help, but equally, you're not helping. Um, you
They
know,
mean well. They mean well.
they mean well. Then I never have anybody that does anything maliciously. You're like, oh, I'm just gonna pat the dog on the head. The dog's eating, stop patting it on the head, please.
Yeah.
And they will go to the person. They look like they're happy, but it's because they're the only way they're going to get rewarded is to go to that person. I've got a rescue dog, and he comes across as extremely friendly, and that he would love a fuss. If you fuss him, he'll bite you because his history with people is poor prior to me, and he's better with me now. But if you're a stranger, he'll come up to you super friendly. If you touch him, he'll bite you. Because he's got mixed signals on his life. He doesn't understand how to interact with people. And you'd be surprised how many dogs out there that will use that kind of flirt, silly, like, oh my God, it's someone in the bush, let's jump all over them. Quick, give me a cheese so I can leave.
Hmm.
And again, it's that what we've been talking about. We forgot the dog training in mantrailing. We just went, yeah, look, they look so happy. The amount, if you looked at a lot of videos and slowed it down and looked at that whale eye, that lip licking, that stiff body language, these dogs are coping with what we've asked them to do. They're not
They're
enjoying
appeasing
it.
us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're
That's all they're
appeasing.
doing.
Um,
Not all, I know, I'll state that just now. Not all dogs. Some of the dogs absolutely love, or what wheel classes love, finding people. Absolutely, or they enjoy. They get reward for finding people. Absolutely, but I think it's less than we think.
and the ones that enjoy people, like there's a, I think I don't know if Cat's on this one. There's a lovely spaniel called Foggy that comes trailing, and he loves people. He loves anybody. So when we do any urban trailing, he doesn't give a shit if you're the trail layer or not. He's going to jump all over people in the street. He's going to try and guess anybody. And because he he's super cute and super sweet, what happens is people talk to him, and he does this like howly talk, and he goes whoa 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 whoa. He'll forget about the trail layer immediately if someone speaks to him because people, any person, is so valuable. Since we started tracking with him to work on, we used it as part of the. He's a really good man trailer, but he's not learning how to find specific people. He's just finding people. He stopped like basically jumping at anybody and hoping for the best. And it made a huge difference in what he was doing because we realized that he wasn't being scent specific. He was being people.
Oh, but
Um,
the dogs aren't saying a lot of the dogs aren't saying specific in man trailing,
no.
in my opinion. They're guessing, and I think someone's actually just popped in the chat about that. Is the dogs are coming along and they'll try it on with anyone. They'll go, "Are you
Mhm.
going to feed me? Are you going to feed me?" Because history tells them it's worth trying it. So it's interesting when we start talking about things like is are the dogs actually trailing who we think they're trailing, or are they going the whole way and guessing? I think I talked about an analogy actually. Let me just.
Blue deer.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's the one. Let me just.
Mm.
I was trying to be all fancy. So yeah, um, like when we look at scent match, so trailing is just scent match. It's just done over a distance. When we break it down that way, we're asking the dog to sniff. Um, an article which has whatever scent we want them to follow. They are meant to follow that to find or follow that trail to find whatever we expect them to do. Um, that's all part of that presentation sequence that we're using. That's what we're tapping into is the presentation sequence. Um, Now, the problem with that, and it's why it works really well for man trailing dogs, is they go, I sniff this, I head in that direction, and then when I get close, I can guess. Because we're not asking them to find a specific person effectively. And this is why I see a lot of the man-trailing dogs struggle in towns, as they go, "Oh, I'll try you," because yes, they know they're to find, let's just say, person A, but person B, Y, Z as well are there and they're worth trying it because reinforcement has tells them that. But what I was meant to be saying is, they're not looking for that blue deer when we're talking about the predation sequence. So dogs obviously evolved to hunt food for their own food. And that's what we're using for man trailing or trailing, tracking, sports, and detection as well. It's all part of the vegetation sequence. Um, we haven't trained our dogs to actually find the red deer amongst the blue deer. We've taught the dog to find deer, or the dogs know how to find deer, but we've not taught the dog to find that particular odor amongst other odors, if that makes sense. And with man trailing, you see that a lot, and that's why I've kind of done this backwards, where you see the dogs trailing through a busier town. The dogs who are understanding scent match understand it's not you, it's not you, it's not you, it's not you, it's you. With dogs who don't, literally will just go, oh, it might be you, it might be you. Now I posted a video of Raven tracking through town this on my Facebook page and Instagram page today, and you can see her. There's people in that video. She doesn't look at them because she knows I sniff this, I follow this odor specifically. I don't care about people. I don't follow that random person. I don't try that random person because she doesn't get rewarded from that. So she's been taught to find the red deer amongst the blue deer, if that makes sense. It makes sense in my head.
It makes sense. It does make sense. So we're not actually teaching to be scent specific. We think we are, but most of these man training dogs are just following any fresh exit trail. They know that Sally's not in the car park anymore because it's always Sally, Bob, and Steve, and Sally's not here. And how many times, if you've done a sports lineup, do the dogs muck up on the lineup? They can't pick the right person out of five people, even if they've seen the person walk away. Can't do it.
Or they try the luck with everyone.
Yeah, they just try it. Or the amount of times they turn on the instructor and go, "Heh, you'll do," and you're thinking, "You never got a reward off me." Um, so we've taken the actual scent match out of it, and it's something we're doing in workshops next year. It's one that I'm doing the 6-month course with Dee at K9 Own Skills, that's based off Global K9 instructor course. Kevin's doing another course, as well, 6 months course, where we are teaching the dogs not just to track, not just to man trail, but to accurately scent match human odor. It's all right teaching your dog to find Kong, because Kong, by the way it is, and the reason we use it is because this should be the same odor every time. Human odor smells different on every person, and it changes over time. It degrades, the bacteria changes, the way you store it. So when you think that, oh well, they're just matching here's a scent article, a person's gone, it must smell the same. Well, a person is an infinite scent source. We always smell. Scent articles, the moment you stop touching it, that's it. What is on there, and that will change in the environment. So we're not
Yes.
giving the dogs an A to A match. We're giving them an A to A, B, C, D, F, G, whatever contamination match. And then when they go out in the environment, that human odor is then covered by stuff in the environment. So what starts to happen is these dogs are trying to match something in the fog. Um, and it's like saying to, like, I've got a toddler, he's 4. Oh, a toddler, he's a small child now. And saying to him, like, he knows what dogs are. Like, we've got plenty of them. He sees lots of dogs. But if I said to him, oh, that's a Shih Tzu and that's a German Shepherd, it means nothing to him. It's a dog. He doesn't understand that difference. If I said to him, go and pick a Shih Tzu out of the crowd, he wouldn't, because he doesn't understand that. I'd have to teach him to understand that difference. Which seems, you're like, well, of course you would, because it's learning. But we don't do it in man trailing. We just go, hey, find the person. Good luck. And we don't teach them to go, well, this is A person, and A person is here, and you must match to them. And B person, this is how B person is. And every session we change the person. We change up who's going to reward them, who's not going to reward them. So of course they go to people that rewarded them before, because if A's rewarded them 10 times and B's only rewarded them once, why the hell would you go to B? So when you look at what man trailing is to most of these dogs and actually take it apart a little bit, God, we've made it really hard. We've made it really hard for them. How the hell they trail sometimes is just kudos to like how good dogs are at sniffing and doing stuff, because we're crap at it.
Yep. Next slide.
I'm on it, I'm on it. We did talk about this a little bit on off-trail behavior.
Yeah.
But basically, tracking just makes it way clearer. Like, once you start adding tracking into it, even just a little bit, it makes it way clearer. And what I've also found with it is the dogs aren't just clearer, the handlers suddenly stop going, I don't know where the trail is, the dog on the trail, and I don't know. Can you? And they look at the instructor and they ultimately miss the dog's behavior because they're busy looking at me going, I don't know if they're on the trail anymore. Articles on the track help us know where it is. We get a visual reward just as much as the dogs. And we get time to stop and think and not be rushing around going, I think this dog's trailing, I don't know, and having this heart palpitation all the time that the dog may or may not be on the trail, and we're having an out-of-body experience at speed. Yeah, we want to be the dogs on the trail, not focus on where the dog has gone off the trail.
Absolutely. Um, when you think about it, and like we're talking about articles on the trail, we can have an article at the start and end. So just like we have a person at the end, but we replace it with an article. So there's no, it's not always a case of there's going to be articles on the trail. But you think for the dog's point of view, it's easier in a sense that they've not got this huge plume of odor constantly giving off odor in multiple directions, depending on the wind, depending on the heat, etc. Depends where they're standing. If they're standing against near a road, is it getting pulled down by the traffic? The article's effectively a dying odor, isn't it? It's only going to hold odor for so long, and it helps the dogs, in my opinion, stay on trail better because there's less odor on the trail. So they can't just go, oh yeah, you're down at the end of the road, that's fine, I'll get to you when I'm ready. They focus more on the trail. It's why they find it more tiring as well.
Yeah, they do find it more tiring because they're focusing for long periods of time, which is really good for the dogs, to be fair.
It is.
Um, just gonna say it with me, guys. Speed does not equal success. Please, for the love of God, if someone's going, "Oh my God, that was so good, your dog did it so quickly," there's a problem. There's a
Yeah.
really big problem because it's just chaos. And there's a picture of a spaniel because it's always the bloody spaniels. They would like to run. If you're running on the trails, if you're rushing and you're feeling like you're having a out body experience, it's no one's having fun. The dogs aren't having fun. They're just running around. They're not learning. And with the tracking, it highlighted this. We just
Yeah.
saw the dogs calm. They were better. They're more accurate. They weren't like sitting back in the car having an absolute fit. Everything just steadied, and it was so
Yeah.
different.
I think a lot of it comes down to we think about speed or we see the speed and we assume it's drive, and actually it's not. It's just a dog running. I think a lot of people see that speed, especially like when you look at a spaniel or like the Labrador we talked about earlier, Amber. When you first see it, you go, "Oh, that dog's got a lot of drive." That dog doesn't know what it's doing. It's just running around, and we interpret that as drive. So we think, "Oh, the quicker they are, the more drive they've got." Well, actually, when you look at like I'll just refer to my dog 'cause it's easier. My working line German Shepherd, she's not quick. She's methodical. Well, yeah, she's a shepherd. Okay, I'll use Catherine's dog, a spaniel, who isn't going to be methodical. She's not quick. Well, she is quick, but she's not pulling or being drivey in the wrong way. She's doing it under control now, and she's way slower than she used to be. But she would like to have speed as equal success in the spaniel's brain, but she's been taught that it doesn't equal success. I think that's really important for us to understand that speed isn't everything, and we miss so much when the dogs are going so quick, and that's again referring to Amber. That was one of like I remember her saying, "I can actually read my dog now," and you seen the owner's face go, "This is amazing! I can read my dog now because she's slowed down." Because that dog was always 100 miles an hour. And they moments, I can say for Catherine as well, because it was a joint workshop, that one. We stand there and go, that's what we do this for. That's why we're talking about it now as well. We want people to start thinking about things a little bit more than just going, ooh, this is the new topic. Let's just do it. So same, let's put this equation into people. Speed doesn't equal success. So we've done a course. It doesn't mean that you suddenly go off and start teaching it. We didn't. For anyone who knows me knows I think about what I'm doing quite a lot. I plan a lot of things out, and I like to do it properly, effectively. I don't rush into decisions because I know it doesn't equal success. I know thinking about it, slowing down myself, and applying it how it in a better way is better for me and my business. We passed our course, the level one course anyways, and I think it was towards the end of January. We could have had workshops out in February. I want to say it was April, May time before we started running
Oh, yeah.
courses.
Then we booked the level two that year as well to learn more, so that um, I don't think we probably started teaching really consistently till after level two when we'd learned more. So the back end of 2023,
Yeah,
four.
it was August 2024 we went out to Holland.
So we put a lot of time and energy into it. We didn't rush because it would equal chaos. We knew that what we were doing is interesting and cool, but it was especially when we were using it not to start green dogs, but dogs under no training, but to start dogs that already had serious reinforcement history with chaos. It wasn't going to be as simple as tracking equals success. It's changing how their brains work, um, which was really hard.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
I still think that's missed a lot. Is a lot of the dogs. I've got clients who've been man trailing with their dogs, 5+ years now, and there's a lot of reinforcement history. If you're doing, even let's just be kind and say a session a month of up to 3 trails, you multiply that by 12, if by 5 years. How many times has that dog been reinforced for going quick or doing whatever it is? So we've come in now and gone, okay, cool. We've got dogs that were starting green. They're actually the easier ones. And we've got the dogs who have got this massive reinforcement history that we are having to go, how can we blend the two different ways to make this work for that team? And I think that's the big thing we're doing now, or certainly myself anyways. I know Catherine is as well. Um, we're looking at how our toolbox can help dogs or teams individually rather than going, everyone now, we don't put people at the end because that doesn't work for all the dogs, all the teams out there. And it depends on the environment. If I've got dogs who find urban towns really difficult with traffic, well, they're going to find it easier to find that person with odor.
yeah, with its tools and toolbox, and it's going out learning about tracking. It's going join us on a workshop. We're always going to encourage you to come to a workshop and learn stuff with your own dogs where possible, or come over and shadow us and things if you can't get your dog over from Europe. But it's even anything. Look at it with a critical eye. Go, this doesn't feel right. Something's going wrong. What what needs to change here? And it isn't more intensity hunting trails, make them more complex, put a harder environment, make it easy environment. It's going, what does my dog understand?
Yeah,
Um, what does my dog understand? And when you break it down, when you look at it, what it doesn't understand always following the trail. It's not always what we think it is. And I think that was the biggest learning outcome that we came with is we went, oh, we thought we taught our dogs to be quite cool. We haven't taught them anything. We have, quite frankly, set up a really hard situation for them to work in. And no wonder they're running around like headless chickens and struggling because we didn't set them up for success. We just set them up to guess and
yeah,
problem solve all by themselves, which is difficult.
yeah. I definitely agree with the guessing. Um, Right, I know there's been some questions already in the chat, so we'll cover them first. If you do have questions, it would be better for us if you can pop them in the chat and we'll work our ways down through them. I'll start right back at the start, so I'll read them out to start with and we'll take some turns. If it's not very clear in the chat, we may ask you to unmute, but we'll do that individually, guys, just to save chaos. But if you really desperately would rather speak, you can raise your hand and we'll get to you basically. I'm going to go back through the questions in the chat just now, and we'll start answering some of these questions because I've seen a few of them popping up. Um,
Well,
duh, duh,
thank you for
duh,
joining
duh.
the live as well, guys. Really appreciate you guys joining us live. So, and yeah, pop any questions in. We'll head through, but you can always as well. We'll put our socials in a minute. You can always drop us a message if you've got any questions that you'd like answered. But
Cool.
like I said at the beginning, we can't talk about your individual dogs unless we know them, because we don't know the answer.
Cool. So, first question that I can see, and if I miss your question, guys, just pop it back in the chat. There's a few questions in the chat, so I'm just going to try my best to get through them. So, question is there anything different in the startup routine for those that have one? What does that look like for the dogs? Assuming that it varies, what differences have we seen?
uh,
Um, so for me, I'll go first. For me, I've not seen any difference in needing a different start and routine for most of the dogs. If I'm honest, a lot of my dogs now just come out harnessed up, ready to go. To be honest, and they can be presented with tracking or trailing, and they just get on with it. They learn. They kind of tell by the setup itself, if that makes sense. I don't know if you've got anything more on
Yeah,
that.
so some of the dogs that I've that've got really heavy man trailing reinforcement, I have changed the start in the way we present the scent articles. So we might use, instead of like a fabric buff that a lot of people use, or like a hat or something, we will use like a smaller article, like a metal article or like a rubber disc or something that is more linked to tracking, to say to the dogs, hey, we want to keep your nose down. It's lower odor intake. For some of the dogs, so Liz is on the human ID course that we're currently teaching with D, we use the scent in a jar, and we've created this consistent start with the jar. The reason it's just in a jar is to lock the odor in. It's nothing magical about the jar, but it's for these dogs that have a lot of man trailing. It's been really good to have a slightly different context in the start. There's some dogs that might have made zip all difference, but other dogs you can definitely see when you offer them a scent article that's just on the ground, that's like a hat, the dog just goes sniff and then throws his head in the air. Whereas when we use like a tracking article, like a metal disc, the dogs work a lot better. They
Yeah.
actually keep their nose down, but we're still undoing this chaos. Whereas I think a lot of dogs you're working with now are a bit more into the journey than these guys.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. I think it's contextual though. So the dogs, they see the difference at the start. It's not about doing scent inventories and any of this. It's the dogs go, oh, okay, I can tell the difference in the track that's ahead of me now as well. So I think it's a combination. I think it just depends on the dog, personally.
Definitely depends on the dog and also the handler, because sometimes what you'll find is the handler sees a scent article, they start running around and getting all excited, and then when you say, hey, can you stop at the beginning and get your dog to maybe take odor off this article using like reinforcement with food and some actually stopping and listening, suddenly the handlers stop running around as well. It's mad. So it can make a difference.
Just on that as well, you've got to think about expectations from your dogs. So if you get, for instance, man trail and pots, and that's what you're still using for track and trailing, and you prepare them that morning, the night before, your dog's got expectations of what's about to happen. So sometimes you have to look at that. You have to change the whole routine of don't prepare your pots at home, do them when you arrive, and things like that, just to get the dog out of we're going man trailing
Yeah,
mode, if that makes sense.
so excited.
We do get
um
excited.
Janet's put, do you use a terminal marker at the end of the trail? Yes, for some dogs, I might use a verbal terminal marker. For most dogs, actually, and I think Kevin does as well, we do something different.
Yeah,
We we don't, I don't necessarily to say finished. It's the only time we get the ball out, it's with Jin, is when we play. She identifies as a Malinois when the ball's out. And we have a little bit of a batter at the end of it. I think you have a ball at the end of Raven as well.
yeah, yeah.
My other dog that I do tracking with, she doesn't want a toy. She gets scatter feed, so we just get this huge jackpot, and all the way back, I'm just throwing treats and getting her to do stuff. So we
Yeah,
have
same.
a clear stop.
Yeah, same for my Kelpie. I just whenever I decide the end is, it might not always be the end of the trail. I jackpot it, but I have a jackpot cue. So a marker that signals to the dog that this is the end. Um, which is slightly different to a termination marker because Ra I'll not go into it, but Ravens has a yes marker for food, which is a termination marker. Stop what you're doing,
Mm,
except which is trailing. It's her decision if she wants to stop for the food or not. And for the ball, I have a different marker, so a toy specific marker. When she hears that, she stops. That's her. It is her choice to stop, but she wants her ball. That's the reward. So it has to be. If you're using a termination marker, it has to be valuable enough reward, either history with that with your dog, or enough for them wanting to stop. If that makes sense. Because I
yeah,
see a lot of people saying yes, and the dog goes and. So you need to make sure that whatever your word, if you're wanting to use a termination marker trailing, it needs to have value that, like if I say yip in a certain way, Raven, my shepherd, will stop. She'll stop whatever she is doing and come and collect her ball because she's like, yes, it's ball time. So yes, we do. Susan, so no, yeah, yeah, absolutely, I agree with that, and especially with resource guarding dogs, and it can create resource guarding actually. People feeding dogs and stealing the pots away as well. I personally prefer two pots for a lot of the dogs. Um, a lot of dogs doesn't matter, but yeah. Tina, yes, I completely agree with this. I think nose sports are the only ones where dogs are not routinely warmed up and cooled down before sessions to reduce injury risk. Um, me and Catherine were talking about this very recently. We don't do warm ups and cool downs like we probably should be doing with our scent sports dogs, and that's definitely something I know I'm going to be looking into added into things next year. But yeah, it's not it's not really routinely seen, especially in the sports world, anyway.
Yeah, we're a bit lazy with the warming up. Claire's put, in your experience, do air scenting dogs that have only ever known man trailing capacity to learn tracking? Claire's a client of mine. Yes, Claire, they do. We're going down this journey together. We'll get there. Yes, 99% of the man trailing dogs that we are working with have pretty much been air scenting man trailing dogs, and they just throw the head in the air and hope they find scent pools.
Yeah.
And we're undoing that, but it's not just about the tracking, it's the mindset, it's the change, it's the getting through the frustration problems, it's finding out what works best for that dog. And it doesn't mean we're just going to learn tracking, it's how we work through that problem together. We're working there, Claire. We're going to get there. There is a plan afoot.
Absolutely. Um, just scrolling through. Uh, do you ever find that a dog will track its handler but will not track a stranger? Yeah, I'd have to know more about that dog, I think, to answer that question.
Are you going to the bottom, man?
I did, yeah.
Lauren's put, how would you start tracking without being too visual? So using those sort of eyes. So would you reward if found article through hunting?
No.
Uh, well, no.
Nope.
There is a plan afoot. It's again, without seeing dogs, it's quite difficult. But
Yeah.
the tracking
You
we do isn't visual based. It is nose
and you
based.
don't want to encourage hunting behavior.
No, 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 no. It's we use the articles, and yes, sometimes the dogs will spot them, but we very quickly go from like articles that may be 2 or 3 inches wide to quite small articles. And we both personally, we work very similar, me and Kevin, drop food off the articles really quickly so the dogs aren't hunting, because otherwise, especially with the man trailing dogs, they just start hunting for bloody cocktail sausage everywhere.
Yeah.
So we use the articles, the dogs will go, oh my God, there's an article, and kind of like handbrake turn on them, which is
Yeah.
really, really fun to see the dogs like work. But it's in the placement, it's in the reward, and it's
The
in
type of article as well.
article using. Yeah, we use a lot of metal articles.
Yep. Um, question.
Cheeseburgers.
So can dogs learn to keep more and better focus by learning to track, e.g., less marking behavior by male dogs on the way? Um, I'm going to say probably not, because we need to look at what priorities dogs have. Um, so for majority of dogs, they're always going to, especially intact males or male dogs, even if they're not intact, are more likely to want to stop and sniff and mark anyways. It's just how you address that basically. I don't have a problem with it per se.
Yeah,
Um,
it depends if they're marking because they're doing boy stuff, or if your dog's a displacement peer, then I have found with tracking that the dogs that displacement pee out of stress do it less, but
yeah,
boys don't. They just pee.
yeah.
Stuff. That
You can tell the difference.
mm, yeah, you get less displacement pee because that displacement comes from the dogs not having clarity. The only downside sometimes of tracking, if you've got a very boy dog who likes pee, is you're encouraging them to use their nose down where there is probably more urine. So sometimes the dogs be like tracking along beautifully and then be like, then stop because there is just a lot of pee there. If it's a problem that your dog's peeing a lot, then it's an underlying training issue that's not going to be solved through man training or tracking.
Yeah, I think we have again handlers have expectations. We need to watch our expectations of our own dogs. Um, or the dogs are naturally always going to want to sniff things. We've got to bear that in mind. And especially if we then say, no, you're not allowed to do that, it becomes actually more valuable to the dog. So we need to be careful about how we approach that. And again, it's one of the things it would depend on the dog and how you want to proceed with it, I'm guessing. Like Raven, I'll just speak from experience. Raven, 95% of the time, she wouldn't stop. So when she stops, I'm like, oh, but I know she's stopping for a reason.
Mm.
Yes, slightly different. She's a female. I understand that, but I'm not going to go. You shouldn't be doing that. Sports dog though, different.
Yeah, sports dogs, different world, isn't it? And it's not hindering what the dogs are doing with it.
And
Um,
for some of the dogs, it's they're sometimes when they're out. I'm not going to say it in a bad way, but sometimes it's the most they get out coming to these type of things.
mm,
So they don't get access to all this lovely lamppost peas, etc. So it's really hard for them to go, oh, I don't want to sniff that because I want to trail. No, well, I want to sniff that and trail. And a lot of our dogs, sports world, this is, are self-employed a lot of the time. They're coming along the trailing, but they become self-employed. Spaniels are the worst for it though. Um, they are. I had to get there in somewhere. Um, but they just switch on and off. I'm working. Oh, what's that? Back on it, off again, on again. But it's not on and off behavior. It's just trailing behavior, but they get sidetracked a little bit.
yeah. Um, Pop any more questions in the comments, please, guys. Please do. If you want to find out more information about us, then definitely grab us on the socials. I'm going to pop some links in the chat now so you guys can kind of see it. But we do have a little Brucey bonus for you guys for sticking around. So both of us would say, if you want to learn, come train with us in person because it's the best way to learn. Hands down, is you
Yeah,
need to come and do it with your dogs. It's why we don't comment on dog too much stuff on this because we can't see it. But we both do some online things to help you get started because we're well aware that not everybody can disappear off to Scotland to do some mantrailing.
you all should though come to Scotland.
You should go. It's brilliant in the borders. It's like the best place in the world. It's so nice up there, and it's never more than 15 minutes away from anything. Um, so I've got a Mantrailing membership. It's been running for about 2.5 years now, where every month I produce a webinar to do with mantrailing and different skills. I've got loads of bonus content in there from industry experts, people talking about how odor is produced, how we're tracking dogs, mantrailing dogs, all sorts of stuff. And if you want in on it, you can get the first month half price with the code tracking. It's just absolutely chock full of stuff. I'm going to get Kevin introduce his membership as well, or his course, and I'm going to find the chat because I lost it.
Yeah, so I I've got an online course. Now I'm going to say it now, and I say it several times throughout the course. It shouldn't it shouldn't replace in-person training. It's really important that I get that across. In-person training is the best, but I appreciate not everyone can make sessions or workshops, etc. So I do have an online trailing foundation course, which is on my website, fully self-paced, so you can jump on. You have access for 6 months. Use the code webinar to save 25% off to the end of this month. So that's the end of December 2025. And it just gives you some foundations in how to set up some trails, basically. It is all based on grass. But yeah, it's a fun way to get started.
Uh, Kat's just put the spinals are multitasking, Kevin. I must admit, I think Foggy does less curtain and more focused since we've been tracking. He does. Foggy is much more focused and he has stopped accosting people in the street with love. So it's definitely made a difference to him.
Yeah, it's this multitasking nonsense.
Spaniels are
But yeah,
though, but that is it. A lot of dogs multitask, they're just more obvious about it.
absolutely. So Catherine's popped the links in the chat for you guys. So to our websites and stuff like that. So please make sure to go and check them out. Um, while it's there. Because we won't be keeping this offer up for long. So please do make use of it or go and look at it or just even give us a follow on socials is much appreciated.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and come and stalkers, come meet us in person. We're running a lot of um and a lot of workshops next year. We're running a lot of stuff to, individually, and I've got one workshop together because I'm not traveling because I'm having a baby. But one of the best things to do is hit us up. It's all on our book window, which is in the links, and come and join us in a workshop because you're going to learn a lot from it, working your own dog, spectating where possible, and things like that. Like, there's a lot to learn about this. And if you're thinking like, oh, this is something I want to add, but I'm not sure, then like check us out. Not in a pushy way of kind of, oh my God, it's amazing, but in a, there's stuff to learn. So come and learn. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you do like it, hopefully you'll come back. And if you can't get to work with one of us, which we'd love you to, then go and learn a little bit about tracking. But again, I just urge you to just look at what your dog is understanding and just think about it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Think about it. I just want to add on a little thing there. Trish said in here about reactive dogs. Absolutely. I myself have had lots of reactive German Shepherds. So as Catherine, we've dealt with a lot of these high drive dogs, and we both agreed that putting them into human spaces is quite nerving sometimes, shall we say. And that's again one of the big benefits of doing sort of more trailing style. Because yeah, it's always been a bit of a grey area for us, shall we say.
Yeah, it's always been conflicted. We just haven't.
We didn't have the answers.
Well, it's really hard to go across against the grain when you don't know what the answer is. I can't turn around and go, I'm not doing that because when everybody else is doing it. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of things to digest in the journey, and we're still going through the journey. And there's loads of people out there that are way more experienced than we are, but we're talking about it all the time from that man training point of view, as we're trying to fix all the problems we put in the dogs, and trying to make the dogs happier with the way they work. Quite frankly.
Absolutely. Grand. Um, let's see. Just making sure there's nothing we're missing in the chat.
Mm.
And lots of thank yous, which is much appreciated, guys. With Chino's conflict with people. Yeah, absolutely. Chino, absolutely. Um, Scotland, yeah. Scotland's nicer than Wales. Hey, you'd admit it too.
Yeah, Scotland's good. I will be trying to make a homage up next year. Um, but yeah, if you can, like, we'd love to have anybody on a session. Say the Bookwen links have got all our dates for next year, our tracking workshops, man training workshops is, but everything we do is focused on you as an individual. So if you come on a workshop, it's about you, no matter what the layout of the workshop is. Um, it's all tailored to the dog in front of us as much as possible, and like taking out things like conflict and helping you have more clarity with what you do. It's the same um, with both of us.
Yeah. Just reading through the comments as well. Make sure we're not missing anything. I will. I don't travel too much nowadays either. But I will be in Northern Ireland next year, Trish, by the way, twice. Um, that's I think the workshop's already full, but I am in Northern Ireland twice next year. And I'm looking forward to seeing Dave. Dave's going to be cool in March.
Dave is
Dave's
the
on my 6 month course, which will be awesome. But yeah, cool. Any other questions for us before we jump off, guys?
Thank you very much. We're going to get the recording up in the next couple of, well, the next day or two. So just bear with. We'll get it out there on the YouTubes. But
Yep.
thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.